We all love Avatar: The Last Airbender, right?
Of course.
And it wouldn't be Avatar without its lovable protagonist Aang. Aang is a wonderfully complex protagonist, virtuous, caring, powerful, and sometimes naive. But he isn't perfect.
Aang would never turn his back on anyone, right, Aang?
Despite being the Avatar, he is still human after all, and is fallible.
Sorry.
But this is what makes him so relatable, and in Avatar, he's a kid. And if we were to judge everyone on the mistakes they made as kids, society would be in ruin. I mean, I thought frosted tips were a good idea. Anyway, we're gonna take a look at 10 of Aang's biggest mistakes, because we are also fallible humans and like that kind of stuff. Let's start off with Aang's biggest mistake, but one that was needed for the story to happen in the first place. Aang's choice to run away and then subsequently get stuck in a storm and frozen for 100 years. Okay, he didn't choose the storm part, but he did choose to run away. Now, some may be quick to argue this entry, as Aang may not have been able to keep the Fire Nation in check during this time, and that perhaps it was fate that he was frozen for so long. But we believe that there were some very avoidable repercussions from his actions. Namely, it allowed the Fire Nation free reign to do whatever they liked and wreak havoc across the lands, causing countless amounts of people to die. But the most noteworthy victims were Aang's own people, as when Aang returned home, he found his air nomad tribe wiped out by the Fire Nation.
My people needed me and I wasn't there to help.
Now, if Aang could have protected his people and prevented them from perishing is up for debate, but leaving and running away from people who would have properly trained him was a naive decision.
I fear that war may be upon us, young Avatar.
Now, as we said, he is a child at this point, so it's understandable. The prospect of having such a heavy destiny thrust upon you and having to leave your home and everything you know is extremely daunting, but we saw what happens when the world has an avatar-shaped hole in it. One of Aang's most lovable traits is the fact that he tries to avoid violence at all costs and doesn't seek to cause harm to others.
Typical airbender tactic. Avoid and evade.
Now, seeing as this show is aimed for a younger audience, this does make sense, as you don't want to see the main character violently killing hundreds of people. But it is also refreshing seeing a young character trying to preserve their childhood innocence. But sometimes this avoidance of conflict can cause issues. Aang often tries to find the peaceful approach, but this isn't always the right strategy. Take, for example, the lead-up to his clash with Fire Lord Ozai. Even when Aang knew that the Sozin's comet was arriving soon, he still chose to have fun and not really address the reality of the situation, which you really ought to when going up against one of the most powerful benders in the land. Now, you could argue that things still played out in his favor, but he had no way of knowing this, and you'd think he would have prepared more thoroughly. Another example of when Aang chose to have fun over responsibility, which had disastrous consequences, is the Omashu slide incident where he lost control of the situation and caused quite a bit of damage. Again though, Aang is a child here, so we can't exactly throw too much criticism at him.
It's okay. It wasn't your fault.
Just like you can't criticize me too much for the frosted tips. Humans aren't always deemed the most trustworthy in movies and TV shows, and usually it's easy to understand why. The same can be said in Last Airbender. Wan Shi Tong was a giant ancient spirit in the form of an owl who collected knowledge and information for his own library, but sought to stay away from humans as he deemed them untrustworthy.
Humans only bother learning things to get the edge on other humans.
So, when you know that a giant owl spirit has trust issues, the best course of action is not to lie to him. But that is exactly what Aang does. As Aang and crew try to gain access to Wan Shi Tong's information, Aang straight up lies to him, which causes Wan Shi Tong to only further distrust humans.
We will not abuse the knowledge in your library, good spirit.
If Aang had been truthful, he may have restored Wan Shi Tong's faith in humanity, but I guess we will never know. There's nothing quite like the feelings a person has on their crush. I mean, just take our constant gushing over Chris Hemsworth, for example. And Aang's crush on Katara is one of the sweetest aspects of the show.
Wow, you look beautiful.
But now and then, it does get in the way of what's going on around him, and Aang's feelings for Katara, even now and then, gets in the way of him being able to access the Avatar state. Again, Aang would often avoid his responsibility and instead seek out his childhood desires, such as his feelings for Katara and seeking to impress her.
You know me. I don't really care what I eat.
His crush and feelings for Katara also were part of the reason for the next entry. Aang often avoided the need to learn firebending, and this was only furthered after an incident where he accidentally burns and hurts Katara and decides that he can take on Ozai with only the mastering of 3 elements. Although it did lead her to learn about water's healing abilities, so I guess that worked out in the end.
When did you learn how to do that?
This, though, was simply not true, and while Katara wasn't the only reason he put off learning firebending, he definitely needlessly dragged it out. If Aang had focused on learning firebending sooner, then perhaps the conflict could have been settled quicker. Again, though, this is debatable, so feel free to give me an earful in the comments. This next one is, to be honest, not just Aang's fault, and it would be unfair to assign the blame completely to him, but he was still a major part in it, so he has to take some of the responsibility. As Avatar fans will know, the Day of the Black Sun is a recurring celestial event in which the sun is blocked out by the moon, causing the firebenders to temporarily lose their powers. So it makes sense then to use this day to attack the Fire Nation and Fire Lord Ozai in order to bring a swift end to the war. But the plan became significantly botched when the Fire Nation learned of the attack and prepared for it.
Azula was ready for us. She had every move planned out.
With no plan B or escape plan, Aang, Team Avatar, and the invading force quickly became unable to escape the Fire Nation royal palace after the eclipse ended, leading many of Aang's party to be detained. Thankfully, Aang managed to escape on Appa, but their half-baked plan quickly went awry, and there was seemingly not enough thought given to what should happen if things went wrong. Again, to attack on the Day of the Black Sun makes sense, but with little knowledge on the Fire Nation and the Royal Palace, it was a bit of a mistake. But please, let me know if you disagree with me here down in the comments. So as you know, as Aang trained and worked on his abilities, he became more and more powerful. The more he trained and the more his power grew, he was able to access the Avatar state. Basically, this allows Aang to have ultimate power.
You muzzled Appa? Tell me where Appa is!
But the issue is, he couldn't control it. By activating the Avatar state, Aang became somewhat irresponsible with his powers and often caused huge amounts of damage and often created more harm than good. Perhaps some restraint here would have been the better option. I know, I said like a minute ago that he needed to face his problems head on and be more confrontational, but as I also said, I am human and fallible too, so I'm going to use that as my get out of jail free card. Moving on to the Legend of Korra now, and times where Aang is no longer a child, and therefore has no excuse. Despite having experience and wisdom as an adult, Aang was still prone to make mistakes like the best of us. One of those things, which is extremely controversial amongst fans, is his parenting skills. Now, I'm told when it comes to children, you're not supposed to have your favorites. Tell that to my parents. But Aang seems to favor his child Tenzin over the others, focusing his attention on Tenzin and basically neglecting his other children. You can understand why Aang focuses his attention on his youngest son, who becomes the oldest living airbending master and teaches Avatar Korra in the ways of airbending, but still, this one is a bit of a personal failing for Aang. Now, this next entry is a controversial topic, but hey, I've probably stepped on a lot of people's toes already, so why stop now? After the conclusion of the 100-Year War, Aang and Zuko set about creating a city where people across the 4 nations could come together and be one.
And begin a new era of love and peace.
Something which was perhaps needed after the horrors caused by the Fire Nation. But the issue is, it quickly became something out of control, with the city becoming a haven of tyranny, crime, and civil unrest. Or, as Obi-Wan would put it,
a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Okay, it wasn't that bad, I just wanted to put the line in there. Anyway, it was a nice idea, but unfortunately, as Wan Shi Tong knows, you can't always trust other people. As we have said nearly countless times in this video already, Aang sometimes shirks being hard on people in order for a more peaceful, caring approach. But now and again, this does come back to bite him in the appa. Take for example his approach to Yakone in Legend of Korra. Aang fails to see that even without his bending, that Yakone is evil and dangerous and basically lets him escape to the Northern Water Tribe. Even without his bending abilities, he proved to be a menace, as in the Northern Water Tribe he gets married and becomes father to Noatok and Tarlok, who he teaches waterbending to, and then the terrifying art of bloodbending in the hope that one day they can avenge him.
You will claim Republic City, and you will destroy the Avatar.
In hindsight, Aang probably should have done more to put him away and keep Yakone far, far away where he can't cause any problems. As we said throughout, though, Aang's complexities as a character is what makes the show so engaging and relatable, and the show wouldn't work without him. But how does he rank amongst your top protagonists? He's pretty high up for me, if I'm being honest, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that Momo is definitely my top protagonist. Ooh, or maybe Sokka when he's drinking cactus juice.